Skix. There is a powder sitting in your kitchen spice rack that costs less than $2. You add a tablespoon of it to your engine oil, you drive for 5 minutes, and the oil leak that has been leaving a puddle on your garage floor for 6 months stops. The seep around your valve cover gasket, the drip from the rear main seal, the slow weep from the oil pan gasket that your mechanic says requires dropping the engine to fix. $2, a tablespoon, 5 minutes. The leak stops because the powder particles swell when they contact hot oil and physically fill the microscopic gaps in aged and hardened rubber seals and gaskets. It is not magic. It is not a Band-Aid. It is the oldest emergency engine sealing technique in the history of the automobile. This method was used by backyard mechanics and rural farmers before the invention of synthetic rubber and commercial leak stop additives. When a gasket failed in 1935 on a farm 100 miles from the nearest parts store, you added ground mustard or black pepper to the oil. You drove. The leak stopped. You kept working. Long-haul truckers used this technique for decades before commercial oil additives existed. Mechanics in developing nations use it today. It has never been published in a mainstream repair manual. It has never appeared on a dealer's recommended service list. Because a $2 spice jar cannot be a line item on a shop invoice. Then someone in a corporate boardroom did the math. The automotive oil leak repair market in the United States generates billions in annual revenue. Engine reseal jobs cost between $800 and $4,000 depending on which seal is failing. Commercial oil leak stop additives like Barr's Leaks and ATP AT205 generate hundreds of millions in retail sales. A $2 powder that provides equivalent emergency sealing for minor leaks is not a competing product in the automotive category. It is an agricultural spice that happens to behave like a seal conditioner, and what cannot be branded, patented, or sold at an automotive markup cannot be allowed to compete. Welcome to Forbidden Fix. If these stories matter to you, hit subscribe and the bell. This is where we dig up what industries spent decades trying to erase. To understand why black pepper and mustard powder stop oil leaks, you need to understand what those leaks actually are at the material level. And the answer changes everything about how you approach the problem. Engine oil leaks in vehicles with over 100,000 miles are caused almost exclusively by one thing: seal and gasket degradation. The seals and gaskets throughout your engine are made of elastomeric rubber compounds: nitrile, silicone, PTFE, neoprene. When new, these materials are pliable, flexible, and compressed tightly against the mating metal surfaces they seal. They conform to microscopic surface imperfections and create an oil-tight barrier under the clamping pressure of the fasteners holding the engine together. But rubber ages. Heat cycling causes elastomers to lose their plasticizer content over time. The rubber shrinks slightly. It becomes harder and more brittle. Its ability to conform to microscopic surface imperfections decreases. The clamping pressure, that was once more than sufficient to maintain an oil-tight seal, is no longer adequate for a shrunken, hardened rubber component. Microscopic pathways open. Oil seeps through. The leak begins as a drop every few minutes. If ignored, as the rubber continues to degrade, the leak worsens. The rubber is not broken. It is not torn. It is shrunken and hardened. And the solution is to reswell and recondition the rubber, or to fill the microscopic pathways with a physical blocking material. Commercial additives like AT205 Reseal use petroleum-based chemical plasticizers that absorb into the elastomer and partially restore its original volume and flexibility. They work by chemical conditioning. The spice method works by physical occlusion. And the mechanism is well documented in food science literature. Ground black pepper contains piperine and cellulose fiber particles, ranging from roughly 50 to 300 microns in size. Mustard powder contains similar fibrous particles from ground mustard seed husks. When these particles are added to engine oil, they circulate through the oil system. Wherever oil is seeping through a microscopic pathway, the flowing oil carries the particles toward that opening. The particles accumulate at the leak site. As the engine runs and temperatures rise, the cellulose and seed fiber particles absorb oil and swell. Some particles are small enough to enter the microscopic channel and lodge in place as a physical plug. The combination of particle accumulation and fiber swelling gradually reduces and eventually stops the seep. The leak is not chemically healed, the gap is physically occluded, but the result is the same. The puddle on your garage floor disappears. This is functionally identical in principle to what commercial stop leak additives do, except with natural fibrous particles instead of synthetic polymers. Barr's Leaks' original formula, first sold in 1947, used ground wheat grain particles suspended in petroleum carrier as the primary sealing agent. The later formulas evolved to use synthetic polymers, but the original mechanism was agricultural. You were always putting ground plant material in your oil to stop leaks. The industry simply charged 4 times as much to put it in a branded bottle with automotive packaging. Before I go further, this video covers the emergency field technique. Inside the Forbidden Fix vault, I have compiled complete oil leak diagnosis guides, gasket sealant comparisons, commercial additive efficacy data, repair versus treat decision frameworks, and the exact protocols fleet mechanics use to extend the service life of aging engine seals by years rather than months. The link is in the description. But stay right here because the repair pricing on oil leaks is where the industry takes the most extraordinary advantage of consumer ignorance. The US Army Ordnance Corps used ground pepper and mustard as emergency engine treatments in the field during World War II when repair parts were unavailable. Army maintenance manuals from the 1940s reference field expedient sealing compounds, including organic particulate matter for temporary gasket repair. The practice was taught in military vehicle maintenance training throughout the 1940s and 1950s. Vintage Chilton and Haynes manuals from the 1960s reference similar organic particulate treatments under emergency repair procedures. This was documented knowledge. It was taught. It was practiced. Then the automotive repair industry consolidated, standardized, and commercialized. The field expedient technique was replaced by branded commercial additives at 10 times the cost. And the fact that the branded additive and the kitchen spice work through nearly identical mechanisms was quietly left out of the marketing material. Engine oil leak repair is one of the highest margin service categories in automotive repair. A rear main seal replacement requires removing the transmission in many vehicles and costs between $600 and $2,000 in labor alone, with parts adding another $50 to $200. A valve cover gasket replacement is simpler but still commands $200 to $800. An oil pan gasket job runs $300 to $1,200. Commercial stop leak additives, positioned as the consumer alternative, retail for $10 to $30 and provide varying degrees of effectiveness on minor seeps. A tablespoon of ground black pepper costs less than 20 cents and provides equivalent physical occlusion on minor gasket seeps through the same fundamental mechanism. The math is uncomfortable for every party that is selling something in the space between the spice and the engine rebuild. If you have made it this far, you understand more about elastomer degradation and particulate sealing physics than 99% of car owners being quoted $800 for a valve cover gasket on a vehicle worth $4,000. Subscribe and share. One share might save someone a repair bill that exceeds the value of the car it was written for. Here is exactly how to do it. Step 1. Identify that you have a seeping or dripping oil leak of minor to moderate severity. This method works on slow seeps from gaskets and aged rubber seals, not on cracked engine blocks, not on oil pan holes, not on catastrophic seal failures with heavy oil loss. Step 2. Check your oil level and top off to the correct mark if low. Never run an engine with low oil, regardless of any other consideration. Step 3. With the engine cold, remove the oil filler cap. Add 1 to 2 tablespoons of finely ground black pepper. Fine grind is better than coarse. The finer the particle size, the better the penetration into microscopic leak pathways. Mustard powder works equally well. Both can be used together for broader particle size distribution. Step 4. Replace the filler cap securely. Step 5. Start the engine and let it reach operating temperature. Drive normally for 5 to 15 minutes. The circulating oil will carry the particles throughout the system and accumulate them at any seep point under the influence of the pressure differential. Step 6. Park the vehicle and inspect the leak area after a 15-minute cool down. In most minor seep cases, the rate of leaking will be significantly reduced or stopped. For slow seeps that are just beginning, a single treatment often stops the leak completely. Step 7. Check oil level again after treatment and top off if needed. Monitor for the next several days. Total cost? Less than 50 cents. Compare that to the $800 gasket replacement or the $20 commercial stop leak additive. I need to be honest with you. This is an emergency field technique and a temporary to semi-permanent solution for minor seeps. It is not a substitute for proper gasket or seal replacement when those repairs are necessary and affordable. If your leak is severe enough that you're losing more than a quart of oil per 1,000 miles, the particulate treatment will likely not keep pace with the loss. If the leak is from a high-pressure oil circuit like the turbocharger feed line, particulate treatment is insufficient and potentially dangerous. Ground pepper and mustard are not food-grade clean room materials. They introduce organic particles into your engine oil. These particles will eventually be captured by the oil filter. Change your oil and filter within 1,000 miles of treatment to remove the particulate residue. Do not use this method as a permanent solution without addressing the root cause. Use it to buy time to make a proper repair. And if you're under a manufacturer's warranty, adding any non-approved substance to your oil will affect warranty coverage. Do not use this on any vehicle still under warranty. Your grandfather drove farm equipment that leaked oil from the day it was bought. He added pepper to the crankcase in the spring and drove it another season. He did not call a shop. He did not finance a seal job. He managed the wear with the materials available. Then, the automotive industry grew large enough to convince an entire generation that a leaking seal was an emergency requiring professional intervention, genuine parts, and a 4-figure invoice. The leak was the same. The rubber was the same age. The physics were the same. But But the billing changed dramatically. There was not a superior repair available at the farm supply store. There was just a more expensive repair at the dealer. Subscribe and share. Every share preserves what they tried to erase. The next vault opens soon, and what is inside might explain why your water pipes have been waking you up at night for years, when one simple adjustment silences them forever.